Hello once again. Ask the Pharmacist, Joe DiMatteo. What are we going to talk about today? Ask questions. Frequently asked questions. Why would I do that? Why don't I have a specific topic? I have tons of specific topics. You've got issues with heartburn, GERD. We have live streams. You have issues with PMS. I think I'm going to redo that. PMS, PMDD, we've got a live stream. Headaches, migraines, we've got a live stream. But I often have questions that are asked to us literally on a daily basis, multiple times within a day, many times, via emails that you send to us, on the radio show. So many overlaps, and I don't have a problem with that. It's awesome. I mean, that means there's new listeners, there's new folks tuning in. I'm great with that. But I wanted to just deal with today some of the most frequently asked. So I'm not going to go into mega depth and detail. So if you say, oh, well, gosh, I was hoping that you'd give me more answers. I mean, on one of these, I could spend 20 minutes. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to take 3-4 minute segments. Boom, boom, boom. What about gallbladder support? What about gallbladder health? I was told I have a sludgy gallbladder. I have gallstones. What am I to do? What's the best diet? I heard paleo. I heard Mediterranean. I mean, we're just going to take some... I can't lose weight. Can I do a liver cleanse? Why should I do a liver cleanse? We're just going to bang through some of these. I hope that it helps you. I believe that it will. So it's almost going to be a radio format in a live stream bucket, so to speak. So I want to talk to you today about selfishness. I just feel like I was dealt with about selfishness and about myself and how I've deprioritize things in my life. So at some point, we're going to talk a little bit about that. I did on the radio show this morning, so I'm going to overlay that to this today. But first of all, thanks for being with us. Let's hope it helps you. Remember, you can ask a question live right now. This is live. This is cold. I have not, I have, as you can see, just some notes that I have made on some basic questions. So I don't even have specific answers to these. I'm going to rip through them as we go, but you might be up there and say, well, what about my thyroid? What about cholesterol? I do have that in this bucket. Send the question. Just say, I'll read it off to me. We'll try to deal with it. If it's fairly pertinent, I don't want something that's real specific just to you, germane just to you. Let's keep some global questions. Let's go for it. All right. Gallbladder health, gallbladder support. What's that all about? I was told I have a sludgy gallbladder. I was told I have gallstones. I want to do a natural flush. I don't want to have my gallbladder removed. Well, I am good with you not having your gallbladder removed. I'll qualify that. If you have gallstones that have moved into the biliary tree, every time you eat, you have pain, sharp shooting pain, it's wraparound pain, and you have multiple stones, you might not have a choice but to have your gallbladder removed, okay? But let's talk about the basics. First of all, gallbladder diseases, we unfortunately see that in medicine, it's just one of these thought processes that just take it out, right? You don't need it. Not sure about that. The reason is because the gallbladder stores bile. It houses bile for you, B-I-L-E, that helps you to emulsify fats, chemicals, toxins, so that you can prepare them for detoxification, elimination through the liver. But what it also helps you to do is to make sure that you can process fats in foods that you consume that are critical. So I developed sludge. They said I did a HIDA scan, and they said I have no big deal, sludgy gallbladder. It's functioning at 18% ejection. So what should I do? First of all, we need to get you off of, let me do this so that we can write a little bit here. We need to get you off of, believe it or not, I can't go into detail on this today. I'm not going to give the background, but I got to get you off of wheat, gluten, multiple reasons, can't cover it. I got to get you reduced on sugars and whites and refined flours. Okay? Why? Because these are all antagonists. In that the biliary tree that from where the gallbladder secretes bile, this can become inflamed and swollen because of poor diet, low fiber, gluten intolerances. And what's going to happen is it backs up, damages the gallbladder, hence the gallbladder becomes sludgy. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to change your diet. Secondly, now what I'm going to do, I might put you on something called Mood Essentials. I might put you on Superzymes. And I might put you on something called LVGB support. Why? I'm going to help detoxify the liver and gallbladder. I'm going to aid in digestion. This contains ox bile as one of the ingredients. So it reduces the stress load on the gallbladder. Put you on liver gallbladder, help detoxify the liver and gallbladder as well. Additional support. I think in many cases folks can preserve. But if it is too far gone, you've got multiple stones, you may not have a choice. But before you do that, let's try some basics. Gallbladder support. That covers, I would like to say, at least in basics, that covers gallbladder. Number two, what's the best diet? What is the best diet? What should I do? What type of diet should I consume? Multiple ones. There's an alkaline forming diet. There's more of a Mediterranean diet. What about paleo diet? What about gluten-free? What about South Beach, right? What's the best diet for me? Well, that could be very individual because you might have a gluten intolerance, then I got to go to a check mark here. You might be more of in a weight loss mode, so then I might move you to possibly a little bit more of like an alkaline forming / an elimination diet. So that's not real specific. I thought you were going to tell me, well, it is specific because to some degree it's specific to you, but these are the types of questions that we receive. So that's why it's difficult to answer sometimes in email in depth, and I tell you, you have to call, set up a consultation with Joyce, our nurse practitioner, or myself. Why? Because you could have other issues that are going on. For example, you might have a high cardiovascular risk profile. You might have a high family history. So I might lean you a little bit more to a Mediterranean diet that's a little more alkaline forming. So what's this going to be? It's going to be lean sources of protein, fish, fresh vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, minimal in the way of refined products. An alkaline diet is going to make sure that you have plenty of alkaline forming vegetables because you have a cardiovascular risk. You might have a significant weight issue. Now I'm going to change directions a little bit, and I'm going to say, let's get you a little more to an elimination diet that gets rid of a lot of chemicals, colors, dyes, sugars, gluten, dairy. You follow me? Because now you have a specific weight issue. So I'm going to pigeonhole you a little more into this aspect of a diet because that is going to reduce a lot of the allergen potential. See, sometimes with weight, it's insulin resistance, there are hormonal issues, but there also can be food allergies and food sensitivities that literally cause an cellular swelling. I know this sounds weird, but your cells can swell and they bloat because of literally irritation, inflammation at a cellular level that's caused by food sensitivities and food allergies. So what's the best diet? So you say to me, okay, cut to the chase. I don't have heart disease per se. I'm not really grossly overweight. I want to maintain my weight. I just want kind of a pretty good diet. What's a good diet? I heard that paleo is the best thing. There's a big paleo kick, which really puts you on veggies and meats. Okay? I can't spell. I have no idea what I put up there. It was hieroglyphics, actually. There's a course in hieroglyphics right after this if you want to stay tuned for that. Paleo, vegetables, proteins, literally no grains. There's some of you who are paleo people, you're going to be mad at me. I'm not necessarily ascribing to that theory. Why? Grains are not evil or bad in and of themselves. What's happened? Well, we've genetically modified it. We've changed them. So grains do become a problem. But that doesn't mean that they're evil in and of themselves, because certainly a lot of meats and proteins have hormones injected into them. They're corn-fed. They're antibiotic-fed. So then that means it would leave you with nothing, in essence, to eat. A lot of the vegetables, unless they're locally grown, organically grown, locally farmed, etc., less chemicals. How many of them are now genetically spliced as well? So I think we have to find, here's the key word, I think, from a dietary standpoint. And there's my eraser. From a dietary standpoint, we've got to find balance. And I think the balance is to basically say that let's get you to more lean proteins, preferably organically, or at least not grain-fed predominantly, not hormone-injected, not antibiotic-fed. Let's get you to a diet that's high in vegetables. Let's not forget about fruits. Let's not forget about raw nuts, seeds. That's the basics. I mean, if you can do this on a regular basis, instead of a big sandwich for lunch, how about a piece of salmon with mixed greens, with some chickpeas over it so it stabilizes your blood sugars? For your dinner, how about a nice side of quinoa, big salad, chickpeas on there? Maybe it's a piece of steak. I mean, don't jump on me for that. Maybe it's a nice piece of fish. It's chicken breast. People say, oh, chicken's evil and bad. Well, you got to have options, right? But preferably organically grown, not antibiotic fed. So follow the basics here. Remember that the less white you consume, the less refined you consume, the less chemicals. It's better than you going out and buying a prepackaged food that you microwave. It's laced with chemicals, preservatives, right? I don't care if you say, well, do you know that 2 nights a week, because of our busy schedule, that literally we have some organic burgers or free-range burgers, and we throw burgers on the grill or in the broiler, we make a big salad, and we try to just make a side of quinoa or long grain or basmati rice. Is that bad? No. I do that. See? So just find some balance, okay? All right. Number 3. How are we on time? I just can't lose weight. Weight loss. Well, what's the diet, or what's the dietary perspective of weight loss? So there's some things that we need to know. Number 1, did you ever have a fasting insulin? This is not a blood sugar. Please understand that. Fasting insulin. Have you had a leptin level done? Have you had a DHEA and cortisol? I say this is way too complicated. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because a lot of these things, plus, will affect your ability to lose weight. If you eat a lot of chemicals, you could have some food allergies, okay, that need to be eventually defined via an ELISA ACT test. So weight loss, I can't lose weight. So the ABCs are going to be portion control, break the fast. What do I mean by that? Don't eat after 7 p.m. Try not to eat again till 7 a.m. Reduce your portions. Many of you just don't realize that you legitimately eat 30 to 40% more than you are perceiving that you do. That's documented. On average, the typical individual consumes about 35% more. If I had you write down what you ate for the day, and then what you perceive that you ate versus someone actually calculating and measuring what you ate, you usually underestimate about 35%. Portion control is critical. Can't overeat at a meal. You've got to learn to break the fast. You've got to eat less preserved or prefabricated foods that are in packages and they're pre-made. You need to basically try to make some things yourself in your own home, which you control. Do you realize that even broth stocks that are used, many folks they just buy a stock broth that's that they make when they make their soup, and they use their own, they get good vegetables and so on, but then they use this broth that is actually loaded with MSG related foods and preservatives and compounds in it because they're taste sensitizers. Do you realize that in and of itself can make you fat? Because it crosses the blood-brain barrier and it affects the hypothalamus and pituitary function, and that interferes with other endocrine systems. So you got to be careful of preserved foods. Portion control, break the fast, can't eat a lot of preserved foods, a lot of chemicals in foods. You must hydrate, you must drink water consistently throughout the course of the day. And then might be some labs that we need to have you get, right? Weight loss. I just can't lose weight. If you're doing these, and there's more, but if you're doing these at a basic, and you're not skipping meals, and you are not gorging at night at your PM meal, skipping meals during the day, eating a big meal at night. Oh, I didn't eat. Last time I ate was about 6:30 this morning, and now it's 6:30 at night, and you're going to eat a heavy meal. No, that's going to backfire. You know why? Because the more you eat early in the day, the less you will eat in the PM, right? So you eat more early, you will typically eat less later. Folks that skip their breakfast typically eat about 30 to 35% more calories late in the day and in the evening. Weight loss, the ABCs. Joe, how do I lose weight? You've done all this, then there's something going on that has to be dealt with much more specifically. Your male hormones, your female hormones, your fasting insulins, hormones can play a key role here as well. All right, what's another one? All right, we've covered gallbladder issues. We've covered what's the best diet. We've covered I can't lose weight. Supplements. Do supplements work? Do they work? Well, we hear this often. I heard. My doctor said. Okay. I read on the internet. Okay, so there's a couple things here. First of all, most physicians really do not have a very good handle at all on nutritive, on dietary aspects. They have very, very minimal training, if any, in this area. Although you see a lot more in the medical journals talking about lifestyle and encouraging people to make lifestyle changes, but most have no idea how to sit on folks regarding that. Number two, I read it on the internet. Now, there's times that you can get some very valuable information off the internet, and a lot of times you're going to get junk off the internet. Seriously, right? So you've got to be careful of the source of what you're receiving. That's why I feel like part of the authenticity of the show that we do, and why we're even trying to upload more information to our website that Diane and Joyce are working on with us, is simply so that you can see where we pull and extract some of the studies and abstracts. Why? Because we have to authenticate what we're talking about. I can't think of, if I quote you a study or an abstract and I cite it, I always give you where it was found and who did it. Right? That's just as important as to the content. Because the content could certainly be shaded by who did it and what the quality of that piece of literature was. So you've got to be careful. So I'm always a little, I don't want to use the word aggravated, but it sets me off when I see I read. I had a girl the other day say, this is what I did, this is what I took, then I heard, and she said it 3 different times in the email. She's probably watching this. I heard from someone, it's exactly what she said. Then I read on the internet. Then someone else told me. So I'm saying, well, who's someone else? Where did you read it? What? Right? And all of it was contrary. It had to do with vitamin D. Well, I heard that you shouldn't really have to take vitamin D. I heard that if you take the vitamin D, this is what you really shouldn't take vitamin D without K. Well, those are half-truths. For example, you might need vitamin K to get first of all, you should have some vitamin K. That synergizes with vitamin D. But that doesn't mean that you don't take vitamin D. But what about, I heard that you shouldn't have to take vitamin D. Where did you hear that? I mean, how could I even comment on that, right? So where did you read it? What have you heard? So let's go back to the supplements. Do supplements work? Well, of course they do. But your life and your lifestyle should start first and foremost with your diet. We are nutrient deprived because of the quality of our crops, number one, is in great despair. Number two, we do not fertilize the way old-time farmers used to. We have more GMO, genetically modified organisms and crops than we ever have before. We are exposed to more chemicals on a daily basis, so the body burden is much, much higher. What do you mean body burden? Body burden of junk, chemicals, preservatives, processed foods. So, boy, this is an hour right here. The stress load. So if you feel like I've missed something, I probably have, honestly. I mean, I'm going to try to cover these as quickly as I can. So supplements, why do I need them? Do I need them? My doctor said no. I read, I heard, and I'm going to tell you that, for example, just as an example, if I just read this morning that if you're going in for cardiopulmonary bypass surgery or you're having cardiac surgery, that the rate of complications are greatly reduced if you have high doses of CoQ in your body on board prior. You get your levels of ubiquinone up, your blood levels up, the rates of ventricular arrhythmias, arrhythmias. I mean, complications dramatically drop when you have plenty of CoQ. So, why do I need CoQ? Well, there are specific issues. Maybe you might be in heart failure. And if you're not doing the right forms of L-carnitine tartrate, D-ribose, high doses of absorbable, utilizable sources of coenzyme Q10 with magnesium, you're missing the boat. So you could buy into you don't need them. What does the information, what does the science really say? And I'm not sure that you're always getting viable information from your healthcare practitioner. You might about your disease state, you might about your medication, but you have to see this as an integrated approach. How am I integrating my health via my diet, my supplementation, etc., etc.? Supplements, do I need them? Yes. I think it's clear that this is just one example, higher levels of stress create a greater demand for nutrients. Higher level of chemicals, exposures, you have to upregulate your detox pathways. You have to have plenty of the B's on board. You've got to have adequate amino acids so that I can get rid of these chemicals. So the more I'm exposed to, the more distress that I'm under, the more junk food that I eat, I put more stress on the liver. The liver can't detoxify. I'm exposed to poor quality of foods in many cases, genetically modified organisms. That's depressing, isn't it? It's very depressing. No, I mean, it's just the truth. And the truth is, if you're not understanding the role of vitamin D in the body, and omega fatty acids, and a quality multivitamin like Daily Essentials, why buffered C ascorbates, the role of probiotics, they're important. So do I need supplements? Not everyone should be taking the same thing. Each individual, there's individual needs that you might have because you might have a leaky gut situation, you might have food allergies, skin problems, you might have high blood pressure, another individual might have fatty liver disease, and so our focus would change. So therefore, it is preposterous to say that you just don't need supplements and eat 3 squares. We were, if you think back to what our ancestry was exposed to 100 years ago versus what we're exposed to, versus, 1 and 2 and 3 generations before that, versus what many of our descendants were exposed to in the old country, in Europe and so on, 300 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago. There's no comparison. There were no such things 300 years ago as chemicals to spray onto crops. There's no such thing. So do we think now that our body just somehow magically disposes of these chemicals and contaminants in a little box somehow? Your body has to be able to do it. Therefore, the demands go up. So 100 years ago, certainly folks worked 7 days a week in many cases. Many men that came from the old country, that came to this country, my descendants, my parents in the 50s, overworked, worked incredible hours, took the worst of jobs. They were under a lot of stress. It was a very physically demanding, just provide for your family. But there was 1 car in a household. There was, in many cases, 1 TV when the advent of TVs. Now we have multiple TVs. We have beepers. We have cell phones. Beepers. I mean, it's old school. I know it is. But what I'm saying is, go back 15, 20 years ago, beepers weren't old school, right? That's what they used. Now, you got people texting you. You could have just left work and then you get texts and phone calls, right? There's like continual, right? Josiah, he knows. Continual distress and demand on our lives. Instantaneous information. Higher levels of cortisol. I mean, I feel it in the last year or two. Just the demands of what I do. Live streams, radio, consults. I find the last couple of months, I feel like at times my heart just starts racing. I've got like so many things going on in my brain, let alone what you don't even see, the business aspect, bills, employees, complications with employees, how to run this, how to change this, what about the website, what about here in the office setting. Does that sound familiar? Of course. Higher levels of distress create higher level of demand. Your nutrient demands go up. So when folks say you don't need them, they don't know what they're talking about. And that's not meant to be derogatory, and I'm not being crass. That's just the facts. But it all starts with this, with your diet. What's the best diet? What's the best supplements? Do I need to take supplements? And if I eat 3 squares, well, certainly this must be where it starts. But the level of impact that nutrients have and quality supplementation. I just read on the air this morning that infants under 3 months of age, if you start them at less than 1 month of age, in a very genetically susceptible population, they did a study in Europe, 7,000 infants, that when they started them on probiotics at under 1 month, the level of type 1 diabetes, autoimmune induced, self-attacking, went down by over 33%, over 1/3. That is astounding. I mean, literally, if that were a drug, it would get approved by the FDA with flying colors. Seriously, but it's not a drug. It's a supplement. And then I have folks send me emails, well, you should just tell people to eat yogurt. Well, do you realize that most of the yogurt has very little? Because most of it's like fast food, has very little good bacteria in it. Unless you're eating high quality, very fermented, done correctly, maybe like a Greek yogurt. You're getting more, certainly. But so many factors, antibiotics, stress, sugar, wipe out and destroy that in no time. So, vitamin D as an example. Do I need vitamin D? Well, let's just take this population of these young infants. So it reduced it by 33%. But the problem that science always makes, they take this one issue, they only change one variable. What about probiotics? Praise God they did it. They showed a 33% reduction in that population of type 1 diabetes. But now let's just overlay that. What if we had then even added and began to check these children's vitamin D levels and added some vitamin D, even at 500 units? And you balance their immune system, because that's what D does. is it possible then that I could have further reduced? You bet your bottom dollar, because there are independent literature pieces that say that infants that have lower vitamin D, or even when they were in mother's womb, the lower the mom's vitamin D level, the greater the incidence of autoimmune diseases and type 1 diabetes. So you supplement them with probiotics, vitamin D, do you know how large autoimmune conditions are today? So supplements, do I need them? My gosh, it's a no-brainer. We're going to go to a break. I'm rambling, but it's all good, I believe, hopefully. I'm just going to keep blowing through some of these. We've got about 4 or 5 areas covered. That's pretty good. We're going to take a quick break, coming back. Just a couple more questions, wrap it up for today. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back. Thank you. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I do. Josiah plays it here live in the office as we're at the break, so I know I enjoyed it, and I sure hope you do. I mean, we're pretty much wrapping down on time, so I'm going to answer maybe like 2 more questions. I know we have some that have come through on the email, some of them very specific. One about multiple medications, bipolar disorder, a divorce. That's a lot of detail that I'm not real sure that I wanted to handle in this setting. That's literally a consultation time, and even at that, that's difficult to deal with. And that's where many times we have individual consultations that we set up with you. There is a fee to do them because we spend a lot of time. And Joyce and I spend hours during the course of the day. Can't do them for nothing. We can't pay our bills if we don't. I have a staff that we have to cover. So I hope you understand that. So there's a lot of detail on some of those that I don't know that I wanted to handle during this type of a segment. And that might fly in the face of this. That poor gal, one of those needs a lot of prayer. And I'm going to dovetail to this real quick, because I think if I don't frequently ask questions, if I don't deal with this, the lack of understanding of these 2 things, and many of you may be viewing this right now are keenly aware of some of this, and maybe others of you are not. And all I'm going to say to you is, I talked this morning about the importance of being unselfish, and how that when we are selfish, what it's literally saying is that I'm more concerned about my needs, what I want, and what I need to do, and meeting my own physical wants and desires, let alone the needs, at the expense of others. So then we get into the spirit versus the physical. And what I just wrote here at that break was, when I focus on the physical, when I sow to this, literally, see, the Bible teaches that what we sow, we will reap. And this is not just about financial. Certainly, that's one aspect. If I sow discord, I sow a lack of integrity, I sow selfishness, you see, I will reap that. The proverb says that what you cast, when you cast your bread upon the waters, when you cast forth things from your life, financial or otherwise, after many days it'll return unto you. So if I sow totally to my physical man and physical being, my wants, my needs, my desires, I will reap destruction because I am imbalanced. Notice I just put spirit first. There was a reason for that in the physical. So you say this, well, what are you talking about today? We're talking about frequently asked questions, how to take care of. I don't think the Bible ever tells us not to take care of ourselves. To the opposite. I think there are specific scriptures that talk about Elijah. God basically told him that he needed to eat and sleep because he was exhausted. He was blown out. He hadn't eaten. He was not making good decisions. He was overcome by fear because he wasn't meeting his physical needs as well. I'm talking about here sowing to this aspect of our life. I'm talking about worshiping this aspect. You sow to this exclusively, we reap destruction. We sow to this, to the spirit man, to our spiritual growth. And I'm not just talking about being a spiritual person now. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to disagree with this comment. I don't think you can just be a spiritual person. See, he's really spiritual. Well, what's that mean? Well, he could believe in anything. I believe in the one true God. His name's Jehovah. He had a son that he sent for us to die for our sins. Many believe he hasn't come. He has come. He's coming again. The scripture lines up. Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, 700 years, I've been reading through Isaiah extensively lately, 700 years before the birth of Christ, predicts his birth, who he would be. Isaiah the prophet, 700 years. What's the chances of that? Is that hapstance? It's not hapstance. Sow to the spirit man, we reap eternal rewards. We sow to the physical only, it's imbalance, we will reap disruption. So let me just read to you very quickly the book of James. And it's talking about wisdom here, but cloaked in this wisdom, it says, who is wise and understanding among you? Let him show it. How? By their good life, by their deeds that are done with humility that comes from wisdom. What's wisdom? The chokmah of God, the wisdom of God. He said it comes from having the wisdom of God. What? A changed life. A life filled with good deeds. But if you harbor bitter, envy, selfish ambitions, everything's about me. I need more. I want more at your expense. You're going to reap destruction. He said, if you have this selfish ambition in your heart, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom doesn't come from heaven, doesn't come from God, but it's earthly, physical. It's lust, it's flesh. I'm throwing that in. It's unspiritual. It actually says here, the book of James says it's demonic. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, I envy what he has. I want more. I'll step over you to get it. The Bible says where you have that, there you find disorder and every evil practice. So I felt that word was for me today, this morning, and I just kind of passed it on to you. And that I feel that if my whole life is focused on me, eventually me vanishes. Does that make sense? Because literally, when I'm focused on this, the Bible says that if that's where your heart and where your desires are, the very things that we desire many times are the things that slip through our hands. But if I'm concerned about the welfare of others, and I'm giving to others, and I am investing in others, and I am growing others up, and I am mentoring, and I am giving financially, and see, what happens is your spirit man grows, and you're reaping eternal rewards. If I focus as well on the spirit, not just the physical, literally God has a way of taking care of this plane when we're in this direction. I hope that encourages you. Let's get back to our focus for the day as well. The frequently asked questions. All right, one last one. Maybe two. Are hormones safe? I heard, I read, my doctor said. Okay? No good. Don't do them. They're dangerous. They're bad. What about hormones? Well, here's what I think you have to find out. Number one, do you need them? And how do we know if you need them? You've got to test them. Saliva is a great, inexpensive tool and vehicle to do that. You can do urine. We have urine tests available, a little pricier. So number one, do you need them? And you can only define that based on how you feel. It has to be subjective. I mean, what are my symptoms? Am I tired? Am I fatigued? Am I losing muscle mass? Am I sleepless? Women, am I getting hot flashes, night sweats, vaginal drying, loss of libido? I mean, this list goes on, right? So for you guys, it falls in. I'm tired. I'm fatigued all the time. I have no get up and go anymore. I don't know what's wrong. I went for a physical checkup. I went to the doctor. They did blood work. He listened to my heart. They did my blood pressure. It all seems okay. I don't have cardiac issues. I don't have that. But have you had your hormones checked? Have you had a DHEA and cortisol level? So here's my point. My point is simply this. If you have some of these things, this is a small smattering, and we check and evaluate your hormone levels, adrenal and female and male hormones, and they come out very, very normal, then you don't need them, quite frankly. But if you're very low, now you are posed with a question, what am I to take? So I'm not some, center for, whatever, anti-aging. I'm going to live forever. No, I'm not. Unfortunately, this body is going to physically, it is breaking down. It is aging, and I will pass. Why I said, what are you focusing on? What am I focusing on, the spirit man or the physical? I cannot deny the spirit man, okay? I can't focus on the physical at the expense of my spiritual life and growth. But from a hormonal standpoint, if they are low, now you're posed with two options. Which direction do you go? Can you do something that is termed biologically identical, or will you use man-made, synthetic, or animal-based hormones? So for years and years and years, this is what we did, and this was what was prescribed by physicians. But if you go back, I remember back in the 80s, men that were having hormonal issues were given methyl testosterone, sublingually or orally or buccally. I remember the name of the drug. It was called Testred. And then I remember reading some articles as a young pharmacist at that time that, what this drug, these men love this drug, man. Like, what is this drug? It's testosterone. Wow, all right, okay, I got that. No wonder why they feel better. But within 5 to 7 years, by the late 80s, there was increasing rates of testicular cancers, prostate cancers, hormonally related cancers. But here's the problem. It was a methylated form of testosterone. It wasn't really just testosterone. It was a methylated form. It was a synthetic man-made version of that. Men started ending up with significant cancer complications. So boom, Testred falls off the face of the earth. This anti-aging, wonderful drug, men's libido, wow, but it was a twisted version of that. So I go back to this. You have two options. Do you use something that your body makes that's identical to what your body makes? If you have a need, right? What's the first qualifier? Number two, is it man-made, synthetic, animal-based hormones? What you have, literally, those are the two options that you have. I think it's pretty clear that if you, number one, you meet the one qualification of a need, I am low. Number two, I feel terrible. So you've met the two basic qualifications. Need has to be defined with a very objective, not a subjective lab test. And then the subjective, how I feel, not just because I read a book, I read the internet, it's anti-aging, I'm going to live forever, I'm going to be like Sly Stallone, whatever. No. Do I have a need? I feel terrible. Now, what do? Do I go this route that produces, I believe, a lot of harm? That doesn't mean that biologically identical hormones are perfectly without any potential for complication and you don't treat them with respect. Anybody that tells you that doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay? You still must understand that they are hormones. You treat them with respect. But now what we're doing is replacing just what your body makes. And here's the real key. Not in supra therapeutic doses, meaning like if these are the ranges of where you should be, somewhere in this range, and you're being dosed, this being high, this being low, this being the therapeutic range ideals, and your values are way up here and you started way down here, and you're getting supra, that means above and beyond therapeutic or physiologic concentrations, that's not what I'm an advocate of. The goal should be is to bring you, if you're subtherapeutic, maybe just into the range that's really compatible with age match controls. So we want to get you into a therapeutic, not a supra, not super, supra, above and beyond, okay? So today, this is not a discussion on biologically identical specifics. This is about the generics. Can I? Should I? Is it okay? Is it safe? I think, in a broad brush manner, I've answered that question. I think we've about done it for today. This was a long scenario. We got next week. We're going to crank these out. I hope that you're enjoying this. I hope that you get something out of this. I can't even prepare for this. This almost just has to flow from me, and that's the way I'm going to handle it. I'm just going to write down the base question, and then I'm going to let it flow. I hope it's blessed you. I hope it's encouraged you. God bless you, man. I would hope that when I write these, or when I interject these little spiritual nuances, please understand one thing. Please, let me make this clear. This is not about me, God forbid, speaking at you, talking to you, talking down to you. I got to tell you the truth. I feel like a lot of what I share many times on the radio broadcast and here are the very things that I feel like as I read the Bible that God's dealing with me about. My selfishness, my concerns for self, my own wants, my own arrogance and pride. And God's been dealing with me over that the last couple of years like I've never believed possible. I feel like my life at times, I just feel broken before Him, humbled before Him. But here's the key. That's never a bad place to be. So when I talk to you about these things, it's something that I share from my heart, very honestly. And I want to encourage you because I feel the uniqueness of what we present. This is not just about meeting the physical needs. This is about helping you and encouraging you and giving you wise counsel. But if I do that at the expense of the spirit man, something happens inside of me. I get urgings and nudges. I know it's not right. It's not just a compulsion. I know it's the Spirit of God within me wanting to encourage you in those areas. Read your Bible. You're an unbeliever. I don't care. God bless you, man. God loves you. I love you. I don't want to turn you away. I want to draw you in with the love and the compassion of God. I'd never want to offend you. I really don't. So don't be offended, please. Just if you would just receive it in the spirit that it's meant. It's not meant to condemn or to criticize. It's meant to encourage and prod and hopefully reveal His glory and His presence to you. God bless you. Thanks for being with us. We've got more. Part 2, maybe part 3. We're going to roll through these, man. I hope you're blessed. Send the questions. You say, he can't give me a ton of detail. Remember, it's not a consultation where I work with you one-on-one. Give me some generic thoughts. Say, Joe, I thought you'd talk more about fatty liver disease. That's a big problem. Send me the email.
Just no vaccination.
Send it.
We'll discuss that.
Well, vaccinations could be one that's going to come up too. So God bless. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in every week. Tell your friends and your neighbors. Turn them on. Maybe they'll watch. Maybe they'll like it. Maybe they'll tell you, don't ever tell me about that guy again. It's okay. I won't be offended. I don't think you will be either. God bless you. Thanks for being with us.